Schwarzenegger on y'all and say, I'll be back.
That's right.
I held it though. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah. Muhammad is his messenger. I'm glad to be back. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, ma'am.
You know, Brother Stan, thank you for your words and encouragement to the brothers on behalf of the sisters. We really appreciate that. You know, the mosque, for some of you who may not know this, and the reason why I'm going to bring this up is because when we miss meetings, we've missed a whole lot. We are set up to meet on Wednesday at 7:30, Friday at 7:30 for the brothers. They have FOI class on Monday. We, of course, have our Sunday meeting. How many people are going to be tomorrow in the city of Black Hand? Come on, I want to see who's going to be here tomorrow. Because you're going to be so excited. Not tomorrow for the brothers. Excuse me. So Monday is for the brothers. So how many of you will be back tomorrow for FOI class? It's on Monday. Raise your hand. See, we got one brother, too. And you're welcome to come to FOI class, brothers. It's open for you. In fact, it is your class. It is the name given to the training of the men who belong to Islam in North America. That is you. It didn't say to the men who are already in the mosque, did it?
That's right.
It said it's the name given to the men who belong to Islam in North America. You are in the hills of North America. Islam means peace. Don't you want to come to a class where you get some peace, brother?
No, man.
Hey, take an hour and a half. It ain't going to take that long. Show up in class. Sisters, we right there Saturdays at 9 o'clock a.m. sharp. So we're learning how to do all kinds of stuff in that class. I will share something with you all right before I bring Brother Willie up. But I want to share on Wednesday night because you're going to hear from this dynamic speaker who the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has chosen to be his local representative. Y'all know Farrakhan, right?
Yes.
Okay, so he got a local representative. Y'all ought to be expecting something out of this dude.
Right.
You know, you got Farrakhan, and then you got his local representative. Right? So when you saw Jesus, then you saw Paul. Did you think Paul had some juice?
Oh, yeah.
Because he was following Jesus.
That's right.
But we expect the same thing. So on Wednesday night, if you weren't at the meeting, brother was giving out some juice. And a part of his lecture, he gave Steve Harvey. Y'all familiar with Steve Harvey, right? He wasn't here, but we had him on the silver screen. So Steve Harvey was speaking on success and how to become successful, but not in a small way. And in the nation of Islam, we believe that we are created in the image and likeness of God. So Steve Harvey, he gave 2 scriptures to back up or to help him to show how he was guided, I would say divinely guided to success. And he said he didn't start off with like your mom and them left you this inheritance. And how many of y'all got that? Oh, don't raise your hand. Yeah. But I know I had a small one, but we spent that in about a year. House and all. But the inheritance that was left to men, it wasn't left to the black man and woman in America. We inherited debt. Right? I just said, Papa was a rolling stone. Wherever he laid his head was his home. But then they talked about his death. Oh, and when he died, all he left was alone. Y'all remember that? So here we are, trying to be successful in a world that is totally against us. But we have God on our side. Brother lifted up 2 scriptures. One, both of them coming out of the Bible. The first one is in the book of James, chapter 4, 2 and 3. This is the New International Version. You, talking to you and me, you desire but do not have. Uh-oh. That's us, huh? Don't we want something? All right. So you kill. You covet, but you cannot get what you want. So you quarrel and fight. You do not have because you do not ask. that you may spend what you get just on pleasures.
Oh.
So Brother Steve Harvey said, that's the first principle that we do not have. He said, you have not because you ask not. Second one, found in the book of Habakkuk. Am I saying that right, y'all? Habakkuk. Habakkuk. This is found in chapter 2, starting with verse 1. I will climb any watchtower and see what the Lord will say to me and what answer he will give to my complaint. The Lord gave me the answer. Listen, write down clearly on tablets what I reveal to you, that it can be read at a glance. Put it in writing, because it is not yet time for it to come true. Look at that. So the second thing he said is write down your vision. He told us to do this. He said, before you go, when you get home tonight, now this was a task for me because I got stuck on number 1, but Brother Willie had us to go forward and write the first one down in the mosque. He said, write down 300 things. 300 things that you want. How many of us can think of one thing right now? See, you having a problem. You got a problem. You got a problem. You got a problem.
Yes, ma'am.
I got a problem because I ain't raised mine up either. Somebody over here, about 2 or 3 people raised up their hand. Because that's how I was. When he said, write down something that you want right now, I had a problem. Because we have been so filled with what we have not been able to what? Receive. We ain't writing nothing down. So when he asked us to write down 300 things, I said, this man got to be kidding. I can't even think of one, but I, by Allah's grace and permission, I found one thing. I can reveal it to y'all. I said, I want to finish that zipper that I'm working on, and I didn't stop until the mosque meeting was, I was at somebody's house. And Friday before I came to study group, I was in somebody's house getting that zipper on that dress. Can I get a hand, y'all? See, if y'all, I applaud myself and y'all can't applaud that. Because I decided to write it down and I wanted to accomplish it. And I'm letting Brother Willie, I want sister, can you step forward? I want to show them something. You. Step forward for me for a second. You got to be, look, fast moving, quick thinking. Yeah, I want y'all to be fast. See, we do that quick. Now, I told this sister, I want you to just take a look at this, the back, and then just turn around. I said to this sister, that's a bad jacket. Because I'm sewing now, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm eyeing this thing. I'm like, man, I got to get this. She told me, I made it last night. So don't tell me. Thank you, sister. Thank you so much. Don't tell me when you have a vision, because she visualized that thing. Don't tell me that when you have a vision, you cannot make it flesh. Write down, before you leave this mosque, write down one thing that you want and let it become real in your life. And as Steve Harvey said, you'll be just like him. So let us, brothers and sisters, and this was a part of the lecture that was done on Wednesday night. Let's give Brother Willie a hand. And I'm so glad I made it out because it inspired me so much. I can't get it out of my mind the way that Brother Willie put that lecture together. He said, you got to study this white man. He said that if he could come out of the cave, walking on all fours, and build a civilization that you see today, that airplane that you're going to ride on next week or next year, that same caveman did it. So if he can do it, what? So can we. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Let us bring up the local representative of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And I told you I don't like no little bitty clap. With a roaring applause.
Allah who appears to us in the person of Master Farah Muhammad. We thank Almighty God Allah for his coming, and we thank Almighty God Allah for his raising up the most humble and honorable Elijah Muhammad. A man that needs to be better understood by the world, especially by black people, right? And
Yes,
if
sir.
we as black people allow this world to make us have a dislike of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad or an improper view of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we're doing ourselves a great disservice, right? Because how could you love the fruit but hate the tree? Like, how can we love Malcolm X but don't love the man that made Malcolm X into who he is?
Come on.
Like, how can we talk about how great Muhammad Ali is and what he did and he's the champ, but if it were not for the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Muhammad Ali would still be known as Cassius Clay.
Yes, sir.
Running around being named after a Confederate soldier, a Confederate general. Confederate meaning during the Civil War, he was on the side of the Southern military that fought to keep us enslaved.
Ooh, look at that.
Then that means now when Muhammad Ali's legacy is mentioned, he's known as Muhammad Ali, one worthy of praise and praise much,
Come on.
not Cassius Clay. So he doesn't go down into history where his achievements are still giving glory to his slave master and his slave master's name.
Yes, sir.
But it was the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad who saw him and gave him the name Muhammad, one worthy of praise and praise much, and Ali, the Most High, right?
Yes, sir.
And when you see that name, it fits the descriptions and the praises that they give to Muhammad Ali,
Yes.
saying that he's not just the greatest boxer, they say he's the greatest athlete of all time.
Ooh.
And it wasn't what he did in the ring, which he did a lot of great things in the ring, but it was his major fight against the powerful government that exists in
Come
this
on.
time, the American government,
sir.
which was his greatest fight.
That's right.
But Muhammad Ali just didn't wake up one day and just say, I'm going to stay up and say, I'm not going to Vietnam. In 1942, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad ended up serving 5 years in prison because he refused to go participate in World War II.
Yes.
And this is where Ali got that idea for that. Why would I want to put my life on the line to fight for a government that has changed our people and made us into something that God did not create, which is a nigger?
Come on.
So Muhammad Ali said that the Vietnamese never called me an N-word,
That's right.
but he got it from this little man here, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So now if you're watching television and they're showing the Godfather of Harlem, they have his relationship with Malcolm X, Bumpy Johnson, and it's fictional. He and Malcolm X were not tight like they're making it on the movie. I read the actual book that was written by Bumpy Johnson's wife. And the only thing she mentioned is that when Bumpy Johnson heard that Malcolm X was having some trouble, he desired to offer him security, and Malcolm refused to take it. That's the only thing she mentioned in the book, but now they have it where you would think that he and Malcolm were walking around
Look
through
at
Harlem
that.
doing these
Look at
type of
that.
things. But all of that is to take this powerful figure as Bumpy Johnson, connect him to Malcolm X, and then come up in a modern time to throw more dirt on the name of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So right when this is coming up now, Netflix puts back, they add Malcolm X, the movie, on Netflix. Now there's another documentary. But guess what? We don't fear dirt being thrown on us.
Come on.
Because anything that grows, when you look at any seed, it begins in dirt.
Teach.
It breaks through dirt, and out of that dirt, it grows into that tree or grows into that flower that it is.
Yes, sir.
So every time they try to throw dirt on the Nation of Islam, guess what? We grow. So we're thankful to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and we're also thankful to the Honorable Minister Lord Farrakhan for being a defender and taking the name and the character, the reputation, and the history of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, which had been put in the trash can, and taking it out of that trash can and cleaning it up where people are now seeing the value of this man, Elijah Muhammad.
Right.
So there will be no Malcolm, there will be no me, if it were not for the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So I greet you all to read words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum. Those who are here and those who are watching via social media on Facebook. So we ask that you share this. We ask that you make comments. We ask that you really watch as well. And before we get into our lecture, I want to encourage everyone before you leave to go downstairs and get a copy of this Final Call newspaper. Whose Christmas is it, right? And in this paper, look at what it says. This is the front article. Identity theft is illegal. And it says, but Santa Claus is co-opting Jesus with impunity. And as I was reading through this, and I'll go to this next one and I'll come back. Do you get this? That's live. It says, Christmas is branded with slogans of good cheer, prosperity, merriment, and the joy to the world. But the whole season is permeated with stress, greed, commercialization, and consumption. Basically, it's saying that it's less about Jesus and it's more about consumption and somebody getting money out of your pocket, right? Every holiday season, hundreds of lives are lost due to drunk driving. Nationally, over the past 5 years, an average of 300 people died in drunk driving crashes the week between Christmas and New Year, according to the U.S. Department of Transportation. How is it that 300 people die within that little bitty brief of time where you're supposed to be celebrating a man who didn't advocate for alcohol use?
Teach.
Something is wrong, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And as I was thinking before I came up, you know, many of our elders are upset that the young people are not in love with Jesus. And they say they need Jesus. They have no respect for Jesus. But one of the reasons why I would say that they are not as in love with Jesus as former generations were is because what we pushed on them as relates to Christmas. What do I mean? Listen to what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says in this article. He says Santa Claus has moved Jesus out. These children are more interested in Santa than in Jesus.
Teach.
What is Santa going to leave under my tree this year? And because you become a lying mother, a deceitful mother, lying to your children that some white man who lives in the North Pole and doesn't even know you exist is going to slip up down your chimney and to you live in an apartment, then you damage the confidence of your whole children with a lie.
Come on.
So these children come up where it's more about Santa than about Jesus. And that adds to the overall attack on the world of religion, on the world of God, where now it's getting to the point where people are saying that Jesus 2,000 years ago didn't even exist. But what if children were taught about Christmas or this period that is more about Jesus than about Santa?
Come on.
When your birthday comes up, imagine coming to a party where everybody is giving gifts to each other except you.
It's your birthday.
But it's your birthday. So when you go home, when you look at that Christmas tree today, for those who are here, those who are watching, look under that Christmas tree and tell me if there's any gift under that Christmas tree that's named for Jesus. It's his birthday.
That's right.
Why he didn't get a gift? You'll be expecting a gift, right?
Yes, sir.
But that goes to show you how Jesus has been moved out of that, and they're using your love and misunderstanding for him to get them dead presidents out of our pockets. So make sure you get this particular final call, all right?
Yes, sir.
So today, brothers and sisters, what we're going to talk about, this title is Addressing and Surviving the Pressures of Life. And while you're here, we want you to listen attentively, right? We want you to take notes on your phone, write on a piece of paper, write down any questions you may have, go and research for yourself, share what you have heard, right? And I chose this particular lecture because I believe it's relatable. Because all of us, regardless of the money we have in our pocket or the money we don't have in our pocket, regardless of our age, where we live, our educational background, all of us are experiencing at some point in our lives, now, in the future, and the past, pressures of life. Is that right?
That's right.
All of us have something that we're dealing with, right?
Yes,
So I chose this message because I want to point out to someone who may be feeling that they are experiencing this great pressure in their life, that there's a place that we can go to give us help. We don't have to try to fight these pressures that's in our life and we feel like there's no solution. There's nowhere we can go to help us. Y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
I chose this message because also I want us to get a better understanding of pressure. And how does Allah see pressure? And how does God use pressure for his will and for our development? Here's some definitions. It says address, right? And that was interesting. I like this. It says, think about and begin to deal with an issue or a problem. See, some of us may feel like we're not addressing the issues in our life because all we're doing is just thinking about them. No, that's the first step.
That's right.
Think about the issues that we're experiencing in our life. And then we think about it and begin to deal with the issue or the problem. Survive. It means to continue to exist, remaining intact. Like you don't go through something like we survived, but we all tore up and broke up. No, we exist, but we remain intact. Is that right? They're continuing to live or exist, especially in spite of danger or hardship. So this is what we're trying to accomplish. Then we get here, pressure means continuous physical force exerted on or against an object by something in contact with it. But this is the definition we're focusing at the bottom. The burden of physical or mental distress. But one of the things that is left out in this definition that is lacking, I will say also spiritual stress. Because this world doesn't just put something on our mind, it also vexes our spirit. And if you're a black man and woman in America, trust and believe on a regular basis, you and I deal with stress.
Right.
Even though some of us may try, we may have money, we may have education, we can travel at the drop of a dime. But nonetheless, if you black in America, the studies show that you definitely deal with stress. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it, and it affects us on an even on the genetic level. The stress that we experience as being black people in America, it affects our DNA, studies have shown. So look at this. It says, although the chronic condition of stress can have negative side effects on all persons, the unique psychosocial and contextual factors, especially the common and pervasive exposure to racism and discrimination, creates an additional daily stressor for African Americans. It's saying this, that we have all of these stressors, but when they look at all of the people, there's an additional amount of stress that's on black people in America.
Yes, sir.
And it is caused by racism and discrimination. I was sitting with a group of brothers and they talked about just the anxiety that they feel when they're on the elevator with a woman, whether she be black or white. And they say what they're afraid of, they're thinking in their mind when they're going up on this elevator, going down, what if she said that I touched her or did something? So they're in their mind thinking about how would I handle that? And I was like, man, that's a burden to be on your mind. When you're on the elevator, you're worrying about if somebody might falsely accuse you of something. But it's the same, that's what the brothers, but you got the same situation with the sisters as well. It goes further. Often African Americans do not realize that daily stresses that may affect their psychological or physiological health, and so we have compiled a collection of articles and additional resources to understand the health effects. I was watching an interview with Meek Mill and Charlemagne, and Meek Mill was talking about how just growing up in the hood, the abnormal just became normal to them. Where stuff about people getting shot and police beating them up and you getting charges thrown on them, he said it was just acceptable. And for many of us as black people, we are walking around with these stressors and we don't even realize it's stress, but we just think that it is normal. And we don't see that how these daily stressors that are put on us by racism, in addition to our own personal problems, how this can lead us to drugs. How this can lead us to the abuse of sex. How this can lead us to a violent behavior. All because we're trying to get an escape. I don't care how strong we are, the human being needs some relief.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to find some type of relief in some way, shape, or form. So the enemy knows that. Let me create a stressful environment and then give them a false and unhealthy way to relieve that stress.
Right.
And then they end up giving us lifestyles that put us further in hell. Is that right?
Right.
Here's an article. Listen to what it says. Study. When it says a study, that means that they've taken data and examined the lives of not one, but hundreds of people. Studies, racism shortens the lives and hurts the health of blacks by promoting genes that lead to inflammation and illness.
That is so true.
They say genes. That means the stress has now begun to start affecting our DNA. And you know what they say? When the body has inflammation, it's a breeding ground for cancer. But it's not only just affecting our mental, it's now starting to affect us on the cellular level.
That's right.
But we don't even realize it. Listen to this. It is not surprising that reports documenting lifespan and causes of mortality have demonstrated a clear pattern. African Americans die sooner and bear heavier burden on many diseases, including hypertension, heart disease, dementia, and late-stage breast cancer.
Oh.
We are leading in these areas and dying when we shouldn't be. So that means they can give you what they call medicine, but because we have all of these other stressors, it hinders the ability of the body to even use the medicines because we're stressed. Then it says, scientists have researched for genetic causes to help disparities between blacks and whites, but have limited success. The strongest evidence dates to points to social and environmental factors such as poverty, healthcare, inequality, and racism. So they're showing that these are the only possible factors that are causing black folks to die at rates that white folks are not dying, because we have these extra battles to deal with, which is what? Poverty, health, inequalities, and racism.
Right.
But do you know the teacher of the Most High Elijah Muhammad, Master Farah Muhammad, in the early 1900s was already giving us a sign and a warning that this environment was going to be bad for our mental and spiritual and physical health? In the first two problems in the problem book, he starts off talking about the physical and mental and health condition of Master Farah Muhammad's uncle and auntie.
Right.
Talks about how their heartbeat was beating at an abnormal rate and they died at 44, 45, or 46. And he said that they were living in the wilderness and it killed them. And those are the first two problems in the problem book, but it shows that it was a destruction of the health of the black man and woman, which shows you that it also impacted the actual families.
Yes.
He knew back then. This is why when you hear the Most High Elijah Muhammad talks about how separation is more important than prayer. Because he understands that my people cannot even live and be healthy as long as they're in this environment.
Come on.
Where white supremacy is even in the food that they eat.
God.
Even in the music that they hear. The art that they see. The TV programs, the sports. You watching it, you see white supremacy and black inferiority.
Come on.
You see double standards in the treatment.
Yes,
And how does this make us feel, right? How does this affect us? How does this affect even our relationship with one another?
Yes, sir.
Now imagine people are dying because of this racism, and black folks are seeing their loved ones die because of this, and then when they're seeing their loved ones die, some black folks have lost faith in God because of the health crisis in our community. And they're blaming God and say, God, why are you allowing these diseases to exist? God, why are you allowing grandma to die? When really it's not God, it's this world that Satan has created. He's created a world that's meant to take out the original man and woman.
Yes, sir.
And it is doing a hell of a job, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Come on.
But look at what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said. He said, now the pressure that is on the human mind that comes from a world that has a contrary order to the way God designed man to live, both in the Bible and the Quran, teach that God should be the head of man and man the head of woman and woman the head of children and man and child acting on the guidance of Allah and make a peaceful home and a peaceful society. He's talking about how the pressure that is on the human mind that comes from the world is contrary.
Come on.
Imagine how stressful it will be for a lion
Yes.
to live a life like a house dog.
Playing against the grain.
Imagine that.
Yes.
When you see those animals in the zoo, even though it looks like their natural habitat, them animals don't look as healthy,
That's
as
right.
happy and healthy as those
Come on.
animals that's in
They're not
nature.
vibrant. Yes.
Imagine the stress that this lion experiences where they have this lion hopping through hoops of fire and rolling around.
Come on. Teach.
When it can't be its natural self.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right.
Yes, sir.
So if animals not in their natural environment can be stressed, what about human beings?
Wound up killing them.
Come on.
Sister Ava, in one of her lectures, talked about how the Most High Elijah Muhammad's oldest son, Emmanuel, told him that his father said that one day he and Master Farah Muhammad were walking down the street. and a bird landed on the shoulder of Master Farad Muhammad, the teacher of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the man we say is God in the flesh. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that he could see that there was a form of communication taking place between Master Farad Muhammad and this bird.
Come on.
And then, after a certain period, the bird flew away, and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad asked Master Farad Muhammad, what was that about? What was going on? And he said, the bird was complaining to me about his dissatisfaction about this world.
Come on.
God.
A bird. So if a bird was doing that, some of us are walking around and don't even realize that we're living under dissatisfaction. It has become normal.
Yes, sir.
It has become normal. Some of us, when you listen to some of us who grew up in these violent neighborhoods,
Come on.
we talk about the violence that we saw like it's nothing.
Like it's going to the ice cream park.
Like we talk about how we saw pregnant women buy crack cocaine.
Right.
How we saw junkies get beat up for owing a debt or not owing a debt.
Come on.
How we saw somebody would just draw down and shoot someone in the
Right.
whole public in front of everybody. We talk about it and we laugh, not even realize those violent acts have become normal to
Lord,
us.
have mercy.
And it has desensitized us.
Yes, sir.
And we
Teach.
are walking around with all of those stresses on us,
My God.
not realizing that it has affected us, because that's not normal.
Teach.
But the way that Satan makes things normal, he causes you to constantly see it.
Yes, sir.
So they have done studies to show how even in cartoons, children see so many violent acts within so many minutes. Then after they turn off the cartoons, there's the music, then there's the TV, then there's the sports. And then after they get out of that, there's violence in their home,
Yes.
then in their neighborhood. And we begin to function in this way, not even realize that we are traumatized.
Yes, sir.
Not even knowing that we have what is called post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Yes, sir.
Here in New Orleans, they did an experiment one time where they fired shots into the air and then they monitored the police 911 call to see how many calls will come from the neighborhood about the shots.
Come on.
And every time they did it, nearly nobody called.
No.
One or two calls.
No.
What that shows is that the people in the environment, it begin to be normalized.
Yes, sir.
Right? So when we look at this, the minister says, think about the stress, man. That you now have to have a conversation with your children at the age of 7, at the age of 6, sometimes younger than that, to let them know that a man is not supposed to be romantically involved with another man.
My God.
Yes, sir.
A woman being romantically involved with another woman. Charlamagne asked Meek Mill when I was watching it yesterday, he said, man, how do you tell your child, your son, about police brutality? And Meek Mill was like, man, he said, man, I really don't. Because you can see in his response, he dreaded having to have that conversation with his son. He said, all my son does right now is play Fortnite, a video game. But he didn't want to have that conversation. But as black people, we have to have that conversation with our children. White people don't have to do that.
That's right.
They teach their children that the police are there to protect and serve.
Right.
You teach our children that if they pull you over, don't move your hand.
Right.
Don't look at them in the face.
Still doesn't work.
Think about, and it still doesn't work.
That's right.
Even now, think about what goes on in you when you're driving somewhere at night or you somewhere and the police pull up behind you.
Stress.
Think about how you feel when you go into a retail store and they're following you around.
Right.
Listen to what your body is getting. Man, I went to go see that movie 12 Years of a Slave. When I left out of there, it felt like the Incredible Hulk had my spine in his hand. All the back of my back was tight.
Come on.
From watching that violence that enacted against us on that movie.
Come on.
Right.
So you went and see Slim and Queen.
Yes.
How the movie ended. Look at, like, what does that do? Does it make you feel good as a black person? Or it further said, like, damn, man, we always catch the short end of the stick.
Yes.
So how do we feel when we see this, when now you see police shootings as often as you see a commercial ad on social media?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You constantly say, what does this do to us? How does it desensitize us? Well, we're constantly seeing some black man, a black woman, a black child mishandled, abused, and killed by the police.
Yes.
What does that do to our psyche? And then imagine young children who have access to these cell phones who are seeing this, and they're growing up and no adult is talking to them and helping them to understand what they're seeing.
Yes, sir.
And they grow up beginning to start thinking that this is normal. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes,
So the
sir.
minister goes further. He says we live in a contrary world and whose end has come. And all the institutions of this world are in revolt. They're in rebellion, right?
Yes.
He says against itself. As a result of this, there is a tremendous pressure on the minds of the human being to survive in a world where stress is now the trigger for all kind of health-related diseases.
Yes, sir.
Out of all the black leaders that were raised up, Marcus Garvey, W.B. Du Bois, Booker T. Washington, Ida Wells, all of them.
Yes.
The Most High Elijah Muhammad was the only one that, in addition to having a political and economic and spiritual platform, he also had a platform and an agenda and a program to help us deal with our health.
Right.
Yes.
Come on.
Right.
Teaching us how to eat to live.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Teaching us what you think is also more as important as what you eat.
Yes, sir. Right.
There's a documentary out titled Soul Food Junkies. And this brother is talking about when his father died, it made him start looking at his father's life, and he attributed his father's death to eating soul food.
Yes, sir.
Which he says in there, the whole documentary bears witness to what the Most High Elijah Muhammad taught. We were the first that started calling soul food the slave diet.
Yes, sir.
The
Yes,
Nation
sir.
of Islam
That's
said
right.
eating
Yes,
chitlins and ham hocks, that's a slave
Slave
diet.
diet.
Yes, sir.
Teach.
Yes, sir.
Eating the grits that they gave you, that's a slave diet.
Come on,
God.
So he felt like his father died from that. But through the documentary, he comes and he says this. He says that it was Dick Gregory and Elijah Muhammad that changed his mind about eating.
Come on.
But he mentions Dick Gregory first, but guess who Dick Gregory points to?
Elijah
Elijah
Muhammad.
Muhammad.
That's right.
Dick Gregory said it still blew my mind how Elijah Muhammad, what he did with non-believers.
Come on.
Dick Gregory said that his mother was a stumped down Christian. You couldn't tell her nothing about Jesus.
Come on, Doc.
He said, but she heard Elijah Muhammad never joined, but she gave up pork.
Teach.
Yes, sir.
Allah
Gave
Akbar.
up pork. And then she produced the son, all praises due to Allah. She produced the son who started fasting for health.
That's
Dick
right.
Gregory.
That's
Come
right.
on.
But it all started from little Elijah Muhammad.
Allah Akbar.
So listen, now Minister Louis Farrakhan goes further and he says, stress, eating the wrong food, living the wrong kind of life has put so much pressure on the human mind that we lack sufficient knowledge to equal the pressure of a world that is collapsing around us. That we lack, he said we lack the knowledge, that if we had this knowledge, it would help balance off the pressure.
Yes, sir.
But remember it says in that article that we talked about, it talked about how racism is affecting black folks on the genetic level.
Come on.
On the genetic level, right?
Yes, sir.
He goes further. The minister says, look at an experiment with a tin can. As long as the pressure on the inside equals the pressure on the outside, the can retains its shape. However, if a can can produce a vacuum on the inside of that can, then 14.7 pounds of atmospheric pressure per square inch act upon that can crush the can immediately. You know what 14.7 pounds is? I saw a video today. They say that's equivalent to 2 gallons of milk being placed on every aspect of your body.
Come on.
So as we sit here right now, you have what's equivalent to 2 gallons of milk pressure being put on every aspect of your body right now by the earth, but you and I don't even feel it.
That's right.
And we don't feel it because what we're breathing in balances off the pressure that's on us.
Come on.
Look at how powerful and the majesty of Allah God. That when he created the human being, he created the human being where even our physical bodies will be able to maintain and stand up against this pressure that's put on us.
Come on.
When they take that atmosphere from out of the can crushes immediately. You heard what I said?
Yes, sir.
Immediately. But do you know when I watch this can, there's a lesson in this for us. This can, what we can learn is that we can learn from how our physical bodies are designed by God to handle pressure, right? Now, our physical bodies are handling the physical pressure.
Right.
But what this also shows us, why would God create our physical bodies able to handle the pressure, but not create our mental and our spiritual abilities to handle the pressures of life like our physical body can?
There you go.
He did do that, right?
That's right.
This shows us that mentally and spiritually, Allah has already designed every human being in a way that you and I already have what's in us that can able to combat and address whatever mental and spiritual pressures of life we're dealing with. It's in our nature. That means we are equipped to address stress. We are equipped to survive stress.
Right.
There's something that we have to do, and you know what's evidence that we are equipped to do it? You and I are still here.
That's right.
You and I have survived every stressful day that we have experienced since we've been here.
That's right.
You and I have survived every hard day. Think about the days that were so hard you didn't see no way out.
Yes, sir.
But you are here.
Yes, sir.
And we are here, and that's us being here, not even having access to what God put in us.
Come on, Doc.
So imagine if we knew how to access it. What would we be able to do? How we would not seek refuge in drugs or whatever it may be to deal with the pressures of life.
Yes, sir.
This world is putting pressure on us for the purpose of breaking us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because like the can, it wants to sap out the very essence of God in a human being, because when it saps out the essence of God in a human being, it can crush the human being.
Yes, sir.
It can break the human being down to where the human being is spiritually and morally on 4 legs like animals. Is that
Come on,
right?
Doc. Come on.
But look at the solution to this. It's found in the Bible. A why which bears witness that God has placed something in every one of us who are here right now. Don't think about anybody else. God has placed something in every one of us right now, and He gave it to us, and we didn't even ask for it.
Come on, Doc.
It came with our makeup. It's a feature that comes with the human being.
Yes, sir.
And look at it. Well, look what the minister says further. The only way that we can equal the inside pressure that is coming from the outside is through our faith in Allah and our effort to live a life that He prescribes. Living a righteous life must be coupled with knowledge that will enable us to see what is going on around us and guide us so that we will not be so ill affected by the pressures of a fallen world.
Come on.
Let me show you this verse. I didn't put it up here. But here's the verse. When you go home, go and read this. It's in 1 John chapter 4, verse 4. Right? Listen to what you've heard it before. It says, ye are of God, little children, and have overcome them, because greater is He that is in you that is in the world. Right?
Come on.
Now here's another translation of it. It says, I didn't do that translation. Here we go. Yeah, here it is, a New Living Translation. But you belong to God, my dear children. You have already won a victory over those people, because the spirit who lives in you is greater than the spirit who lives in the world.
Come on, Doc.
So God is telling you that those pressures that you facing, you already have something that's in you that's greater than the pressure.
Come on.
Right?
Come on.
That goes to show you that He already designed in us divinely. We have a divine essence in us that's greater than the pressure. Whatever we are facing is not greater than what's in you.
Yes, sir.
Whatever you're going through, it is not greater than what's in us.
Yes, sir.
The thing we have to understand is who is the He and how we access it.
Yes, sir.
It says, greater is He that is in you. Then who is the He and how do we access it? And this is why the teachings of the Most High Elijah Muhammad are so important, because it's not just about teaching us about the reality of God. It's not just teaching us about God coming. It's not just teaching us about God, but it's also teaching us that we are gods, and listen to this, how to become a God.
Yes, sir.
Which everybody has read this Bible, and even though it says, ye are God's children of the Most High God, you're made in the image and likeness of God. Many people read this book with the mindset, never having the thought that they can become a God.
Yes, sir.
And if we're reading Bible and Quran in that way, we're really missing the point. All of these stories is trying to show us how God met people and gave guidance, and this is the right way you need to live and think so that you can grow into be a God.
Yes, sir. Yes,
See,
sir.
God is not the name of the supreme being.
Yes, sir.
The Most High Elijah Muhammad in the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says this, that God is really an attribute, is a description of the supreme being. It only means force and power.
Come on, Doc.
So when we say you can become a God, meaning you can become a human being that uses your force and your power to change and direct your life. That's what that means. That's what that means. But they flip that back, they reverse that, and you get G-O-D when you spell it backwards as D-O-G, where they reduced us.
Yes, sir.
A dog doesn't have, think about his force and power. But the Most High Elijah Muhammad, when he's talking about Master Farah Muhammad came in the person. Allah came in the person of Master Farah Muhammad. If Allah can come in the person of Master Farah Muhammad, what about you?
Yes, sir.
What about me?
Yes, sir.
What about you?
Yes, sir.
Why would God make us in His image and likeness, or create us in His image and likeness, and we be so powerless?
Come on, Doc.
Right?
Come on.
Listen to what the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan says. He says this. We live in a creation of God. Whatever God creates is of Himself. Right? If God is the author and source of divinity, how could He create a universe and that universe not be divine? Then he goes further. You can't improve on anything that He created, for He created it perfect. He didn't create the sun in His image, neither the moon nor the stars. He created nothing in His image or likeness but the human being. The only thing that can say it is created in the image and likeness of God is you and I.
Come on.
In the Quran, Allah says that the sun, moon, and stars was created to serve you, not to serve God. He said that they were created to be subservient to you and I.
Yes, sir.
So if we didn't exist, guess what? The sun, moon, and stars wouldn't exist.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Think about that.
Yes, sir.
We don't know how powerful we are, that even in the end when Satan was arguing with God, and the people were fussing saying, God, Satan was the reason why we fell off. And Satan says, listen, God, I had no power over them. I only called them and they came.
Yes, sir.
Think about that. Think about when you hear people keep talking about the devil is busy. Satan is busy. Satan is doing this. But Satan in the last revealed word of God is saying, I had no power over them.
Yes, sir.
Other than the power that they gave me.
Yes, sir.
Right? We're spending our lives. I was talking about when we grew up time. I remember Gummy used to like Bob Marley, right? We love Bob Marley. First Rastafari I knew, right? Bob Marley in the song Get Up, Stand Up, he says, preacher man don't tell me that heaven is under the earth. I know you don't know what life is really worth. Then the second phrase he said, people expect Almighty, what he says to come, people expect great God to come from the sky, take away everything and make everybody feel high. But if you know what life was worth, you will look for yours on earth.
Yes, sir.
They have fooled everybody into looking for God to come out of the sky. But when the real Jesus comes, He teaches people a prayer that tells them that God's will is going to be done not off in space, but on earth.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When you hear somebody come and tell you that, listen, man, when you hear people saying that it's not talking about living in space, it's talking about God's will on earth, that's when you know that the Messiah is present in the earth for real. But who is teaching it? Who is teaching you that, no, this is what the Lord's Prayer means? It doesn't mean you dying and going to the sky. It means that we can make heaven on earth. The first person I've heard teach that is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Come on.
But we can't see that, man, the person is here to let us know that, yo, they've lied to you, but God has raised somebody up to tell you the truth, right?
Come on.
But look at what the minister said. How could you be in His image and after His likeness and not have His divine nature? Talking about us. How can you and I be made in the image and likeness of God, but not be of God?
Yes, sir.
But not be of divine?
Yes, sir.
And this enemy is so crafty that he's come back and flipped the religious world, where some of the major religions, if they hear you saying that you are divine, they say you're committing shirk. You're making partners with Allah. No, we're not saying that you pray to us. We're just saying that we are the glory of God.
Come on.
That God has placed in us the ability to say, be and it is.
Come on now.
Is that right?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
But look how anytime you talk about the divine nature of a human being, they say that that's sin. When you read in the Bible, Jesus caught hell from the religious people because they said, that's blasphemy. You're saying that you're one with God. The people who had the scripture, who should have been amen in Jesus, was saying that Jesus was wrong for trying to say that he was divine.
Come on.
And that's the same thing that happens with the teachers of the Most High Elijah Muhammad. They get upset when they hear us say man and woman is God.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Come on.
So then we go further. The minister says this. He says, when he talks about our divine nature, what we need, this is key for us to know, to believe, and to act on. That's our role. We have to believe it, we have to know it, we have to believe it, and then we have to act on it.
That's right.
You have to act on it in your own personal life.
Yes, sir.
When you look at the human body is designed like the universe. The universe has one sun and 9 planets. The body has 9 systems.
Yes, sir.
You are the God in your own life.
Yes, sir.
But what are you and I creating with our God-force powers? Right?
Yes, sir.
So when we look at it, the reason why we need to know, believe, and act on it is because it is key to understanding how to address and survive the problems of life.
Come on.
If you and I don't know we're God, and we don't know that we have the power, you would think that we can't handle the pressures of life.
Yes, sir.
You see how in the zoo, when they have in the circuses where they have the beasts, and they're making these animals who outweigh them, they're making them bow down to their will?
Yes, sir.
What you are seeing is how the human being has used his will and overpowered the will of this animal.
Yes, sir.
Even if it's an elephant.
Yes, sir.
There's a documentary where these elephants were running wild. And man, they showed this elephant in the nature. He was charging this area, but there was a man who learned how to conquer them. The man was a skinny white man. He stood up, and man, that elephant slowed down and stopped. And he talked about how he was able to do it, but he was using his God force.
Yes, sir.
So if you and I take the time to develop ourselves, you and I can make our pressures and the pressures that we experience in our life, we can make them bow down to us.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So whatever financial problems that you may be facing or I may be facing, guess what? It's not greater than the God developed in us properly.
Come on, now.
It's not. And you know why? There have been people who have taken the time to look at their misunderstanding of finances and wealth building, and they've studied and they've gained the knowledge and they've grown themselves. Where they've changed from going from being in bankruptcy to now they're financially stable.
Yes, sir.
They're wealthy. But they use it, they begin to develop the God force in them to do that, right?
Come on.
So whatever problems you are facing at work is not greater than the God fully developed in you and I.
Come on, Doc.
Whatever we're dealing with our family, with our children, with our marriages, whatever it is, the problem is not greater than God force developed in us if we develop it.
That's right.
But we have to build that mindset. So we must grow that power inside us, and we must live a life that best can give this life force an environment to work in, right? It is important to do this because, listen, it's important to understand this because no one is going to live a life that's free from life pressures.
Right.
Anybody that tells us that you're going to live a life and not experience any pressure or difficulty are lying to you. So that's one thing that we need to get out of our minds. Because they've given us this understanding of God that we're supposed to live life, and if we make our prayers, we do good, that we're not supposed to experience anything.
Right.
The life of Jesus is an example that that's a lie. This man, they say he was the Son of God. The Spirit of God was all in him, and he caught hell.
Right.
He had life pressures and more. Is that right?
Right.
So we have to understand it. So listen to what the minister said. Y'all all right?
Yes, sir.
Check this out. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, look at this verse. He says in the Holy Quran, the book of scriptures of the Muslims, we are taught by Allah that He created the human being to face difficulties, not run away from difficulties. He created the human being to struggle, for it is only in struggle that we manifest that God has put within. This is the other meaning of, this is the balance of that scripture in the Bible. It says, greater is He that is in you that is in the world.
Yeah.
So this scripture, Allah is telling us that, listen, you don't know that He's in you, so now conditions have to be put in place. That I've set in laws of the universe that even when Satan tries to hide me from you, I've created a system that you're going to find me in you.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
I've let difficulty, that Satan can't alter difficulty. And he can't alter difficulty because even he's going to face difficulty. But in this difficulty, you're going to find me in yourself. Right?
Yes, sir.
So people may ask the question and be like, well, man, God, why God, why did you make difficult? Then the minister goes further. My slide's a little bit off. The minister talks about how he says how struggle is ordained. I'm going to get back to this. Right? We talk about difficulty, right? Think about this. You cannot be a champion in any sport if you don't have an opponent. The minute you have a goal, G-O-A-L, think about basketball, football, baseball, whatever. You have to fight and run through an opponent to get to your goal.
Right. That's right. Right.
The same thing in life. The minute you and I set a goal, best believe there's going to be an opponent. And that opponent is going to be inside or outside of us, but you are going to face an opponent.
That's right.
We could not call Floyd Mayweather a champion if he never fought anybody.
That's right.
Right.
Imagine if Floyd Mayweather went to the ring and there was nobody every time.
Yes, sir.
In order for Floyd Mayweather to become 50-0, he had to battle somebody.
Right.
Yes, sir. To be a champion.
Right.
You just don't go through you don't reach the level of being a world champion without facing something.
Come on, teach.
Muhammad Ali would not be a world champion if he didn't face something.
Right.
The Saints had to face opponents when they began to be Super Bowl champions.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So you and I can never reach the God status thinking that we're not going to face any difficulties.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
In our marriages, in our health, in our finances. And some of those difficulties are going to be in our own mind.
Yeah.
There's going to be the opponent in our own
See,
mind.
that's the first one.
But look at this.
That's the first one.
There are the vast majority of world champions who wear that title, they're not undefeated. So that shows us that you can still be a champion even if he took some L's.
Go ahead. Teach.
Because what we learn from that fall will help us in our next battle.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
Teach.
We shouldn't get caught up because we failed.
Right.
We shouldn't be caught up because we fell down, we backslide, whatever we did.
Right.
It's all a part of it. I heard a pastor say this. He says the steps of a righteous man is ordered by God.
That's right. That's scripture.
Think about that. So when you look at our study this with Samson, Samson's father and mother, the angel came to Samson's father and mother and said, your son that you're going to give birth to, God is going to use him to destroy the Philistines.
Yes, sir.
Don't cut his hair. Don't allow him to drink beer. Keep him a certain way. Samson grew up, and Samson lived a life that from our perspective and from his parents' perspective, he was doing everything that God said not to do. He wanted a woman that was not from the children of Israel.
Right. Right.
And his parents were like, Samson, this lady is not one of us. She's not from the chosen. He was like, I don't care. I want her.
Yes, sir.
And dealing with her, he ended up killing Philistines.
Yes, sir.
Then it led him to Delilah. Now imagine everybody sitting back saying, look at Samson. And his mom and them talking about he a child of God. God told him this. And he ain't cut that boy hair for all these years and didn't feed him. But look at him. If he's so godly, why he marrying all these women that's not of his faith? But they didn't see God's hand in it.
Come on now.
They didn't see.
Teach,
and that's one of the
teach.
things. They didn't see God's hand in it.
Wow.
And so he got in Delilah, and guess what? In his attempt to destroy them, he killed more Philistines in his death
Wow.
than when he was alive.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Yes, sir.
And Philistine, the children of Israel had been battling the Philistines since David and Goliath. And the Philistines represented uncultured, savage people. But God had his hands on Samson's life. Right?
Yes, sir.
So you don't know how God is using you. What your fall may have been, right?
Yes, sir.
I was listening to a pastor, he gave the example of Aaron from the Bible, and he was talking about from his perspective how when Moses was taken up, Aaron allowed the children of Israel to go sideways and start worshiping the golden calf.
Yes,
And he said that God allowed Aaron to go through that because he saw that later down the line, Aaron was going to be the head of a priesthood. And then Aaron was going to raise up a group of men and women who love the word of God, but he would teach them because he knew that he one time sinned, and he would make them in a way where they would not judge those who they would bring the word to.
Yes.
But Aaron got in that position because he fell. But we fall sometimes and we stay there. I listened to this pastor, he said it was interesting. He said his grandmother told him as a child, he was walking around with a rosary on, and he said, baby, that's not what you should wear. He said, Jesus is no longer on the cross. And he talked about how people, she said the cross is supposed to be a symbol to show this is what Jesus overcame.
Yes. Suffering.
He ain't on the cross anymore.
Come on.
But he said that sometimes most of us want to stay where we were. We don't want to say that God helped us overcome this.
Come on.
That's why we have to be very careful about staying in our past experiences so long where it makes us bitter. Where we blame God and we blame others. Learn from the experience because we may not know that may have been our first grade lesson, second grade lesson, third grade, fourth grade to get us to be 12th grade.
Yes, sir.
To prepare us to get where we need to be. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
So when we look at this, the minister says the following. Before you came to birth from the world, from the womb of your mother, you struggled. The very life germ that was the source of your life had to struggle in competition with 100 million to 7 billion sperm to reach the air. It had to swim against gravity upstream in a hostile environment. The one that struggled in that competitive journey in hostile environment was you. Right?
That's right.
So you were born prepared for life, for the struggle that accompanies life.
Come on.
God is saying that, listen, if you doubt that I prepared you, look at what you had to fight against when you didn't even have a full human body.
Come on. Teach.
You prepared for this thing. You prepared to do this thing called life.
Yes.
But we have lived our life being taught in a way where we don't think we're prepared. We allow circumstances to change us instead of us changing circumstances. He says the following. When you have ease and no difficulty, you never fully develop what God has put within you. So he says, so Allah has ordained struggle.
Come on.
You know what ordained means? That Allah has set this up whether he's here or not, you won't go through struggle. Whether you're blind, crippled, or crazy, you won't go through struggle. Whether you rich, poor, educated or not, you won't go through struggle. It's ordained to every person. Like you could be in a wheelchair. You ain't avoiding struggle. Nobody gonna avoid it. If you alive, you're gonna deal with it. So you better understand, okay, if God ordained it, he didn't ordain it to punish us. He ordained it evidently there's something beneficial in it for us. Is that right?
That's right.
Yes, sir.
Maybe there's something in there that God is going to use it to develop us for our benefit and his will.
Come on, Doc.
Right?
Come on.
You ever had a personal trainer? When you go to a personal trainer, they have an idea. They know what your height is and what your height is and what your weight is now, but they know what your height is and what your weight should be.
Yes, sir.
So you go there and they tell you, look, you got to do 3 sets of 10.
Right.
You only want to do, out of that 3 sets of 10, you only want to do 5. But they're saying, no, keep pushing. No, I can't push it. No, push it up again.
Right.
Where they work you where your arms are sore, you can't even pick up your arms the next day.
Right.
And you might walk away cursing them, but you don't see that they understand, they see the potential in where you want to be, and they know how to get you there.
Come on.
You understand that?
Yes,
sir.
So you got to remember, if you want to see why we have this difficulty in our lives, why we have to face it, remember what God understands where we were and where we need to be. His whole purpose of coming to Mosque Muhammad said is to bring us back to him.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
To return us back to him.
Yes.
Because he knows that man has fallen, and now we have to get man and woman back up, and I got to bring them through a process. Look at the scriptures in the book of Genesis. It says that your seed should be a stranger in a land that's not theirs for 400 years.
Yes.
Meaning they're about to catch literal
Ooh.
hell.
Not for a day.
But look at what he says. But after that, he says they're going to come out with great substance.
Yeah.
My God.
So what impact did the hell that they catch for 400 years produce in their great substance?
God.
So what impact did that failed marriage, that failed relationship? How is that preparing you for your future? How did the time you spent in jail, the time you went bankrupt, the time you made bad decisions, how is that preparing us to come out with great substance?
God.
But if we curse the process, we don't really see the value of the outcome. So the minister says the following. He says, this is the pattern of God when he wants a people for his glory. He doesn't make it easy for you. He makes it hard for you so that the more you struggle, the greater he can bring from you what he has deposited in you.
That's up.
Deposited, right?
That's up.
He says the following. You don't find gold necessarily on the surface. You don't find diamonds necessarily on the surface. You might get a sign that something is deep within, but if you don't know how to mine, if you are not technologically efficient to go into the earth and mine out the earth's treasures, then you are not able to put what you mine out of the earth into your service. He says wise people learn not only what is in the earth, but how to get it out.
Come on.
And that's where our problem is. We come here, especially in the nation, more than any. You come here, you're hearing about God in you, God in you, God has come, God has come. But what we are lacking at is, how do I access that God in me?
Yes, sir.
How do I mine it in me? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Some of us in some areas of our life we have access in some areas that we're not. But
Yes.
we want to take that God. We don't want his finger out of the dirt or his toe out of the dirt. We want to bring that full body of God out of us. Is that right?
Right.
Yes.
So this is how you know when the real Jesus comes, he teaches people that the kingdom of God is in you.
Yes.
So first he has to spend time
outside.
teaching us to stop looking in the sky, but look in yourself.
God.
And even after he gets us from looking in the sky, he then has to warn us about only worshiping it in somebody else.
Yes.
And don't realize that the man that I raised or the men that I raised to teach you to look for God in yourself, you're not supposed to stop at them. They're pointing you back to yourself.
Yes.
Find God in you.
Yes. Praise the Lord.
Because when you find God in you, remember in our lessons it says collectively we are a lot.
Yes.
But if only 10% of us are finding God in ourselves and the other 90% are still worshiping God in others, we're not a lot yet.
Right.
That's why self-improvement is the basis of community development.
Go ahead, man.
All of us have to be working to manifest God in our lives. But the reason why we don't is because of Satan's deception. Satan has basically went into a toilet filled with feces and covered up all of the human beings. That analogy. We stink. So Allah said we stink in the nostrils of God.
Yes.
We stink so much that we don't even look within ourselves. So I talk about that analogy when Satan had came and asked all of the different animals to hide it. And there was this one animal, a mole. He said, Satan, give it to me. I know where to hide it, where they will never look for God. He said, where? I will hide it in them.
That's right.
And people don't look. Listen to people when they talk about God. It's always outside of themselves, right?
Yes.
Outside of themselves. But we need to know how to get it out. Look at this example. That's what the minister said about that. Wise people learn not only what is in the earth, but how to get it out. Look at this man. I heard Brother Nuri say this when he was here. This is a miner. And he's in a coal mine, right? But we said when you look at it, the analogy, there's something in it. He's mining something out. Coal, diamonds, gold, whatever it is. But the man has a helmet, but in the helmet, it has a light on the forehead of the helmet. Right?
Yeah.
Then to mine it out, the man needs tools, right?
Right.
He had to be trained, is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
Most of his work is done in the dark, is that right?
Yes.
There's a lesson for us. So if you and I want to mind God out of ourselves, we're going to need to have the right knowledge in our head.
That's right. It's a light.
We're going to have a light in our forehead where somebody is telling us first that God is in you.
Yes, sir.
That means you're going to have to read this book, Message to the Black Man. You have to read the teaching of the Most High Elijah Muhammad. You listen to the lecture of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, because that's the light in the head that's telling us to where to look.
Yes, sir.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Then in addition to that, we're going to need the right tools.
Yes.
The right methodologies. How do we do it? And also finding God is getting our diet together.
Yeah.
Because you can't find God in you eating pork.
That's right.
We can't find God in us smoking cigarettes.
Yes, sir.
We can't find God in us smoking alcohol or drugs, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
We need the right tools.
Come on.
You cannot find God not being having a disdain and dislike for reading.
Yes, sir.
We will never find God if we don't want to learn.
Right.
You're not going to find God in yourself if all we want to do is just somebody just to tell us about it. Guess what? We cannot find God also being afraid.
Right.
In order to find God and experience and manifest the God in ourselves, we're going to have to experiment on some stuff.
Right.
When we talked about Wednesday, we talked about how the 24 scientists, there's a lesson of success. Steve Harvey talked about how nearly all of the millionaires that he's with, he said that they all write down what they want to accomplish. I have the book in my office by Jay Prince from Rap A Lot. In the book, he has pictures where even when he was out in the streets, he was writing down, I want to buy my mother a house. I want to have farmlands on so many acres. And he goes back, the papers are all wrinkled up in pencil where he scratched it out. But it's talking about writing it down. But in the lessons, we're talking about our teaching. We're talking about the 24 scientists that they wrote history in advance and then they went out to make it happen.
Yes, teach.
So that means we need to sit down and ask ourselves, what do I need to do in order to help manifest God in myself? Right? So we have to have courage.
Yes, sir.
But also this man in his mind, I've never seen a mind that's bright.
Right.
All the light in the mind is in artificial light. But they're working in the darkness.
Yes.
So that means sometimes, brothers and sisters, that in our effort to find God in us, it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be dark. That means we're going to have to go through some of those painful experiences. We're going to have to come into contact with some of those negative thoughts that we had about ourselves. Some of those thoughts about ourselves that while we were verbally saying that we love ourselves, but in our mind, like, nigga, you know you lying. We're going to have to address what mama told us, you're going to be nothing like your no good daddy. We're going to have to heal in that thing like, yo, I love my parents, but my parents are not able to love me now, but I forgive them and I have to move on.
Yes, sir.
We're going to have to confront those things in our way to go to God, because how can we say that we have God and God force, but we have not used our God force to get past those things?
Come on now.
That's a part of it, right?
Yes, sir.
But the beauty of it is, man, that God gives us an example of it. God has a man here, he's an extension of the Most High Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, sir.
He's an example of somebody who has come into contact with their God force and they're using it, right?
Yes.
And this man is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, right? If it was somebody else, I would tell you somebody else.
Come on now.
But this is the man that helped me understand what I'm sharing with you, and I have not fully manifest my God force.
Yeah.
There's some things I allow fear to stop me with my God force. But there's some things where I allow my God force to overcome the fear. It's a process. We all are in this battle, right? Remember we talked about how this world, the pressures of this world weighs on us. Look at Minister Farrakhan. When we were here on Friday, Sister Lenore, I was watching a documentary. I said, man, I've never seen a person who looks better in his older years than his younger years.
Go ahead.
You see the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's skin, you're like, man, this man's skin is flawless.
Yes, indeed.
How is it? Here's a man, brothers and sisters, that if he had not told us as a nation that he was walking around with these bags on him, nobody would have been able to tell me that the minister is in that health condition. I would have not believed it.
Can't believe it.
I would have not, I don't care if there was a roundup. I'm like, man, you lying.
That's right.
But here's a man that has battled, processed prostate cancer, where they put all of these balls of radiation balls, and it annihilated his pelvic area.
Yes.
But you will never know it. Because he's not complaining about it.
Come on,
He's a
don't
man
look
that's
like
fighting through his pain and fighting through his health challenges.
Yes.
Still, because he allows the God force in him is greater than whatever he faces.
Yes, yes.
You don't think that the minister has challenges in
Getting
his
about
life?
it.
You don't think that he has challenges with his children, challenges with it in his personal life?
Come on.
But you can never tell because he does not allow that to stop him for what he's here to do in his life, his mission.
Make it plain.
Well, how should we allow something to stop us on our personal goals?
Right.
See, he's in contact with his God force.
Come on.
That he can say, I want to see 1 million men in DC, and he goes to work.
Yes.
Right. Here's a man this man has the U.S. government and governments on him.
Come on.
Right. Fighting against one of the most powerful communities in the world, the Jewish community, but he doesn't look scared.
Go ahead.
Where you have mega pastors that have way more money, way more congregation, where they don't even need the government program. They can live off the charity from their congregation.
That's right.
But they're still scared to speak the truth.
Teach.
But here's this man in America, he says what he says to the president. He goes to Iraq and says what he says to Saddam Hussein. Wherever he goes.
That's right.
This is a man that's manifesting to us. He's showing us this is how you say be, and it is.
That's right.
So if we want to do it, as the Most High Elijah Muhammad said it in this simple way. He says, when you see him, look at him.
Right.
Because I know you might doubt what he says, but if you do all of that, look at him.
Look at him.
Jesus said the same thing. He said, if you doubt my words, look at my works.
Right.
Right?
Yes, sir.
He said, when you hear him, listen.
Yes, sir.
When he tells you to go, go. And when he tells you to stay away from, stay away from. So a lot of these problems that black folks are experiencing right now in America as a people, the minister doesn't say we're doing it because we are rebelling.
Yes, sir.
We're catching hell today because we are rebelling.
Teach.
Wow. We have not followed to a greater degree any of our leaders that have come with programs at all.
That's true.
And then out of capital, God brings up, not a prophet, God brings up a divine warner. God raises up a man for us that no one taught but him.
Come on.
And we still battle following.
My God.
What do you expect after that?
Come on.
It's a mercy that Minister Farrakhan, he can really say, listen, I've done my job. I've taken my teaching to every nook and cranny. He can get in and say, he can tell all of us to stop.
Yes.
But the reason why he has not given up on us is because of his love.
Yes.
And the scriptures say that about Aaron and Moses, that when God was ready to destroy the children of Israel, Aaron and Moses prayed to God and said, no, give them one more chance.
Oh, have mercy.
That's the man that's in our midst.
Yes, sir.
But we have to take advantage of him. We have to begin to listen to what he says. Simple. When you hear him, see him.
Right.
When you hear him, listen. When he says go, when he go. When he says stay away, just follow that. Find out one thing that he said, follow it.
Go ahead.
Right.
One thing that he said, stay away from, stay away
Yes.
from. Do it for 30 days and then come back and let us know how it has changed your life. We all have pressures in life, man.
Yes.
Don't let nobody make you think that we don't. We all have it.
Yes.
But if you don't remember anything else that I said today, know that greater is he in you than whatever you're facing. Whenever it gets dark and you feel like, man, I'm not going to be able to make it, remind yourself, greater is he that is in me than is in the world. Just keep reminding. Whatever, y'all know but God is greater in me.
Come on.
The force is in me.
Yes.
The power is in me.
Come on.
You know, you see your father, you open up your bank account. I know it looks bad, but greater is he that is in me.
That's right.
And then begin to start finding different things to help us change that condition.
Yes.
It's going to take time.
Yes.
Because you need time.
Yes.
But we have to constantly remind ourselves of these things, because when we stop doing it, what happens is it goes back to what I showed. And remember, this is what Satan ultimately wants to do. The minute that he can begin to get that power out of us, it's going to crush us.
Right.
We have to push off with the power in us. And we all remember the scripture says you are already victorious.
Yes.
Because he's already in us. We just have to spend time developing the God in us.
Right.
Prayer, fasting, doing good, reading, right?
Right. Right.
And keep a daily thing, a daily thing, a daily thing. And God is going to bless us. Thank you all, man.
Yes, sir.